Hallo, willkommen beim A-House World Summit. Ich bin Michael Görden und Herausgeber des ARIA-Programmes in Deutschland. ARIA ist der Deutsche A-House in Germany. And I'm talking today to Ilona Selke, who is a consciousness worker. She wrote books, and her books are published in German language, and there is American editions. So welcome, Ilona. Thank you for joining us at the A-House World Summit.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me here. I've loved working with you for the last 15 years, and I am so grateful for all of us, those that participate speaking, all of us who are listening, that we are setting up a sort of extracurricular university which is helping humanity open doors into the subtle information, the hidden mystery knowledge, where in ancient times we had to travel far and wide to hidden monasteries to get this information. And now we can do this in our own home. And I'm particularly grateful that this is available in this day and age. Thank you.
So it's a great pleasure that we have time to talk to each other for an hour, because usually we only see for business and we never have so much time to really talk. So although for me it's a great pleasure to have you here. Ilona, I'm very interested in your personal life story, because with your life it looks for me like you were kind of predestined for becoming someone who helps other people to develop their spirituality, because you had such an interesting background in your own life's development.
Yes, you're right. I was born to German parents in the Himalayas in Afghanistan, and after my father died at my age of 2, my mother delved into having to learn things to survive. And the first thing she learned is how to access higher states of consciousness, because she had traveled to India back then, was not a hippie. She was a normal person, but very much aware that there was knowledge that was hidden in the East. And so she already taught me at an early age to meditate. And I had my own yogi mother. She was, in a way, able to see the future. She taught me yoga, she taught me meditation, and when we had to move to Germany because my father had died, she brought us up in Germany, and the path she took was to train people, creativity and consciousness in religion and spirituality, but she then taught people how to teach these kinds of seminars. And because babysitters were not en vogue in the 60s, I was taken along on these journeys, and from age 4 and 5, I sat in on these seminars. And I remember seminars, even when I was age 10, I participated. I raised my hands, giving answers at such a young age, and mixed in with adults, that now makes me think, and I think that's what you're hinting at, that sometimes the universe conspires to set you up in a particular direction, or else we can say we have set ourselves up to take parents in particular teachings. And I knew as a teenager that I was going to go into adult education, and I was aware of my calling. I had a strong feeling of having a special purpose. And sometimes I wonder how much we bring with us and how much we can create. I think if we feel a nudge in ourselves that we know something is on our path, it is up to us to foster that, to strengthen it. But I also think that we need to be listening to what we're faced with and what comes into our life, to take that as a key to unravel our destiny. Additionally to teaching me how to meditate, to look at my third eye, how to do yoga, she also asked questions such as how to listen to my inner feeling about what is right and what is wrong for me. And she took her time to listen to our answers. She also took us out into nature and had us listen to the wind. She had us listen to the silence of the woods, to the space in between the trees. And this inner silent listening, I think, set me in the right direction.
I mean, could one say, in a sense, that spirituality develops in the space between things? Because quantum physics already tells us that the real information is in the space in between.
I think that's a beautiful point you're making. And if I think back looking at how my mother trained me, yes, it is in a way our becoming silent and listening to the silence behind our thoughts that gives us access to a perception that I think quantum physics is aiming at, is saying that is behind the physical appearances, we find a space that is filled with energy. And by becoming aware of this space between spaces, even if you go just into the woods and look in between the trees and become aware of we call it the negative space, right? The space that isn't actually something, but that is a nothing. Become attuned to that absence of the form, to the space between. Our mind naturally becomes subtler and subtler and is slowly training our perception so that we can perceive that world which goes beyond, which gives us information at a heightened level. And the beauty of this is, and what I loved as how my mother did it, is ask me as a child to listen or see into that space, rather than trying to tell me dogmatically how I can become spiritual and that I need to do this or that right. She had me simply become more aware. She did awareness training with me as a child, and I think all of us can take that into our every single day life. We can sit in a room, for example, right now, and just feel the space around us, and even imagine then heightened luminosity, which I do, for example, in an exercise of how to bless something.
And is there an exercise we can do with the people who are not listening to our interview?
We can do that, for example, right now. Even as we're listening to this talk, we can become aware of the space that surrounds us. Sensing the energy field activates our higher antennas in our perception, in our mind, even in our DNA. And then we can even imagine sitting in a blessed or holy space. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's imagine as if we're right now sitting in a blessed, holy space. It requires that we shift into a world or a heightened state of time-space, which is accessible to us in a higher mind function. And in that sense, our spiritual evolution actually takes place step by step, not as a particular goal that we have to achieve, but as a way of living in between the spaces. Just opening my eyes now, looking at you, I see a sparkling in your eyes, and I don't know, would you share, just from your perspective, what you just experienced?
It's a great, very deep feeling that this is something where I'm with you, contributing to other people. This is something what I feel very strongly about. And in a sense, some of what you do in publishing is about sharing, but you seldom have it at a focused moment. Usually you have to forget about it because it's a long process of years and years until the project is there. And sometimes it's very endearing if you have it in a moment.
Such as now. That's beautiful. And what I feel when we talk is that this is where each of us becomes an important agent. So we actually start interacting wherever we are, and we have the opportunity to increase that on a heightened level of energy and awareness. We can shift from particle awareness, from looking at the trees, so to speak, to the space in between the trees, and we can start noticing the luminosity of spirit appearing ever stronger. what I love about this particular memory of my mother is that it is a non-dogmatic way of asking myself to become heightened in my awareness and stilling my mind to a point where I could start entering the finer dimensions, just very similar to Plato's description of his cave. It took me out of watching the shadows inside the cave, and it asked me to ascend through that tunnel out into the light, starting to sensitize my perception. And this is our journey. This is our journey of spiritualizing and becoming more aware as humans. And there is no one final stop that is the absolute, although many teachers would like to present it that way. I think there is one direction which takes us to the center of the universe, the God force, the center. And yes, that is the path that I take people on through many different techniques, profound techniques of shifting consciousness into heightened states of soul awareness.
You describe your work as consciousness development, and it's very interesting for me, and I think for our audience as well, to get a perspective what does development mean for the consciousness. We all know that we want to be on a higher level, but we also have sometimes from my personal experience, a somewhat vague view what a higher level should be. I mean, we seek a higher frequency, and by our heart we know when we sometimes reach that level, but we don't have a real model. What does it mean?
That's a very beautiful question that you ask, and I do think we could really use some very clear descriptions of levels. However, there are many teachings, and different teachings have a different goal. In my seminars, I give a PowerPoint presentation on this, and there is a sort of a chart that describes the layers. Let's say the physical dimension has a vibrational rate. The emotional astral dimension has another rate of frequencies. Beyond that, we enter the mental frequency world, immeasurable by our physical scientists at this point, although a lot of research is being done right at this edge between the energy and the mental force. There's research being done by Princeton University, the random number generators, where computers all over the world are picking up on thought or energy waves that humanity is emitting, or some other dimensions are emitting, that are affecting computers. Beyond that are realms that are finer, and religion and spirituality occupy themselves with those realms, immeasurable by the human senses, but yet measurable by our heart, by our energy body. Some teach to go into the void, the nirvana, the no state, the no mind. And in my book, although that is a good place to enter because it allows us to have a clear slate, so to speak, a pure perception in order to enter even finer dimensions, it is to me a starting point. The path that I've traveled, I got an understanding, a cosmology that pointed at realms beyond, at non-dual states of awareness. And those states require that we coagulate pure consciousness into ever more intense presence. And this obviously isn't done overnight. It's not even one single aha. It's a continuous training of our diamond of our soul that is the lens into the allness. And the intensity or the purity of this lens is actually what we work on through decades, eons of evolution, of reincarnation upon reincarnation. And we learn. We actually can tell over decades of inner practice, depending on what worldview we accept, that we can make progress. But let's say we take a worldview where we say, okay, the no mind is the ultimate. That's when we get there, or certain states of ecstasy, we will tend to want to stay there because we figure that's it. And yet, as far as I can tell from my own experience and reading others, there is an ever ongoing refinement that takes us to the immeasurable depth of the One. One of the questions that many people ask is like, okay, so how does manifestation of my wishes fit into my spiritual evolution? I think spiritual evolution consists out of a number of elements. One, for example, is purifying our emotional body. A lot of work has been started in the last 20 or 30 years, refining our emotional body, purifying ourselves of trauma in this life as well as others. We do past life regressions, we do psychotherapy, we do a lot of internal cleansing of belief systems in order to become a pure vessel, just even in here, in this emotional realm of the here now. And I think that is a very important aspect of our spiritual evolution, because the lens that we operate through is our human mental, emotional body. Let's say our soul might be very purified, but if our mental, emotional, physical body is not, only a certain degree of light can shine through. Even, for example, the techniques of manifestation will reflect to us where we have limitations. People might say, I've tried and tried to manifest all this money or this beautiful something, this love relationship, but somehow it's not happening. Wherever our blocks are, we get a reflection of them in the 3D world. The beauty of life is it manifests what is inside of us. The emotional body, our belief systems, all are part and parcel of what we manifest in the outer world. We do need to focus our mind forward, so to speak, horizontally into time-space, and it will reflect back to us where we're at. And our belief systems are actually our guiding limiters, without which we cannot live. We cannot live with no belief system or no structure. We will always have one because we have form, and through form only can we even make sense out of the formless. And the true dance is amplifying as far as we individually can our ascension vertically into what we might call the source or God, purifying our diamond of soul to become ever grander and more pure, as well as polishing our emotional, mental bodies, our belief systems that are reflecting back to us from 3D reality where we're actually at. And the two together, the vertical and the horizontal purification, the manifestation, the psychotherapy, as well as the spiritual purification of our single-minded focus towards the one, allow us to ascend as a holistic unit. I remember reading in a book by a woman who had had a near-death experience once, having ascended into the non-physical realms, who'd spent intense amounts of time on meditation and purifying her inner focus. And what she came back with is realizing, when she reappeared, so to speak, in her body, that what she had not done was she had not attended to her emotional self, her heart energy, her love. So the ascension as well as the horizontal expansion into 3D matter, time and space are a true measure as to where we are in our evolution, and a beautiful dance between the two. We also offer these kinds of trainings online, these manifestation skills, including the techniques of how to transform our blockages, our negative belief systems, or the belief systems that hold us in a particular form. It's called the Living from Vision course, and people all over the world are using this technique in particular. A lot of people use in many continents now in order to reach into deeper potentials of their mind, because it does take daily training, it does take focus. It actually only gets better. I listened to my own CDs for 15 years every day with my husband and practiced techniques of manifestation. And when people look at our world and our life, they say, how on earth did you create all this? We started out just like everybody else, but we practiced every single day our meditation techniques of going upward into the vertical realms of pure God consciousness, as well as into the horizontal of cleaning up our human emotional body and learning to focus our mind to co-create. In the end, co-create heaven on earth, love, beauty. And the longer people practice manifestation skills, the more they start manifesting higher mind functions. We at first may want to have a car that works. Later on, we will create environments and places that benefit more than just our personal self. We start focusing on communal issues. We start focusing on internal higher states, not just the better lifestyle, not just our own wealth, but the wealth of others as well as the wealth of our happiness. So in my book, Wisdom of the Dolphins, I describe techniques how to purify the emotional body, how to focus our mind, and how to create a future. And in a nutshell, there are two techniques. The future is created by being in the future now. Let's say one time I was giving a lecture and there were 700 people in the audience, the Prophet Conference. I had decided that morning I would like to manifest a flower in front of the entire audience. This is something that I thought would stretch my boundaries. I had done miraculous things in my life, but doing a flower manifestation in front of 700 people was going to be a new thing. I worked in my inner vision, feeling body, in this meditation before I went down for the presentation, until I felt that this flower would truly appear in my hand in front of all these people. You know how you get that feeling that something will happen, is happening, is really true? They have found out that when people are good spellers, when they read or see a word written, they all report that they feel it in the back of their spine. There's a sense when something is on, when something is right. And we can attune ourselves to this feeling of, yes, I believe it with all cells of my body, and I know it. A bigger part of me knows that this is true. Take that and practice that, and that will be your guiding light between illusionary, hoping for, and knowing. So I did this exercise, went down, started my presentation. With my right hand I was holding the microphone, with my left hand I did this, and now I'm going to manifest this flower, hocus pocus, turning and wheeling of my hand like a magician. If I can do it, any other human can do it. Not just some select mystic from India, some yogi, but some...
You're talking, I can do this.
Yes, anybody, all of us.
Anybody who's listening to us right now could do that.
Yes, provided we address the parts in us that doubt and honor that part and give it a voice and a feeling. And dialogue, now this I didn't do the first day I learned this technique, naturally. But I did some magical things that I did describe in the book, Wisdom of the Dolphins, already right from the start. So I did my... okay, hocus pocus, I'm turning my hands, I'm saying I'm manifesting a flower. I make this big swing, and would you believe it? I'm holding a flower in my hand. It was a torch ginger flower with a long stem on it. In front of everybody, and I'm shocked. I'm looking. Oh my God, I have this on camera. And the thing is, the first thought was, I'm better than I thought. My God, this worked. And then, of course, now here's the trick. My reality became true. But inadvertently, I had this big, huge flower pot behind me with big flowers that I had swung my hands through. Now, because of the glaring lights, I wasn't that well oriented in front of the audience, and I did this hocus pocus thing, had the flower in my hand. Now, this is the other trick in manifestation. We will get what we really believe in can happen in accordance with our deeply held, accepted boundary conditions. Belief systems, whatever we think is acceptable. I thought it was acceptable to have a flower in my hand, but I also needed a little bit of a good explanation.
So you got this because it was a flower that looked like the one next to you?
No, the flower behind me, when I went back with my hand, it grabbed one of the flowers and pulled it out of the vase. But I didn't know that I was doing that. My subconscious did. So there are a number of things that we need to be aware of in our spiritual evolution. For one, our subconsciously held beliefs determine our boundaries. Boundaries are good. We want them. We just want them always a little bit larger than we ever were before. That makes us evolve. Now we need also techniques of how to address the parts of us that are not as luminous. And all of us encounter feelings of negativity, of doubts, of fears. In that, I teach mechanisms of how to listen into the darkness and find out, and I can give you a very quick, brief technique of how to shift any negative situation. you want to hear it?
Yes, although we are in a very positive situation right now, but just in case, it may be good to have it.
Part of what I train in are techniques that are based on the teachings of Dr. Vern Wolf's work, Holodynamics, in how to access negativity within our emotional body, how to find out what the true positive intent is, and then how to bring that shift about in our subconscious mind in order to allow the higher positive intent to be the ruling energy in our life. Let's just take a quick example, being in the traffic jam. When we might find ourselves in a situation, anything, but let's take a traffic jam, where things are not working as we want them to, or people are not behaving as we would like them to, we tend to get upset or angry. But it could also be a feeling of fear, anxiety, unworthiness. Anything negative has a feeling within our body that reflects itself as a feeling of fire, of contraction of something. Usually anger we feel in our solar plexus as a form of fire. Many people even imagine it as a fireball. Now if we start putting our attention on where we feel the negativity and give it identity, taking this energy outside of ourselves in order to actually give it a separate voice and asking it what it really wants. If it could have what it really wanted, whatever that negativity is, it will give us a higher wish, a higher positive intention of itself. For example, being stuck in traffic wants to get wherever it's going on time. I describe in my book a story and describe the process that I'm using of transformation in there. When we have a negative feeling, such as the anger in our stomach, we can take it out. First, we start feeling it, and it requires that we become self-aware. We stop, so to speak, and step out of the movie. A very important spiritual step. Stepping out of the game, out of the movie, and not identifying with the film, but being the viewer of the film, and asking ourselves, do I like this? What am I feeling? And then locating that in our body, because our body does not lie. I can think a million thoughts about why I might have this feeling, but our body has a sensation, and that's all I need to find. Locate that feeling, and then take a look at it. What is it looking like, feeling like? Is it large? Is it small? I can even ask myself, when did it start? Because some of these feelings are repeat stories of when we were a little child and for the first time could not manage dealing with the situation. We can start with our mind from that story, going, okay, how did I feel then? What did it feel like? And then going to the next important step. Once we're outside of the movie, we can ask, what would this energy, what would I really want if I could already have what I really wanted? This allows your soul's voice, your higher consciousness, to step in and give you a redirect. Oh, wait a second, I wanted to arrive on time. All we need now to do to make a quantum jump in consciousness and in physical reality, because everything we see in our film of our daily life is a reflection of what we hold in our mind, is to view the potential of the future that we do wish to experience. We take it on like, okay, what would that feel like if I already had that? And we give up trying to get there with our anger and instead allow ourselves for a moment to arrive at the future. Then, once we get the feeling of like, I'm at home, I am on time, I made this appointment, I've met the person I was to meet, I am in the wedding or in the marriage, I have the child I want, I am in the future that I've always dreamt of. We now can thank the old energy and not eradicate our past, but simply acknowledge it for its deeper underlying intent of getting us to where we really want to go. All it takes is us to step out of the picture for a moment and to allow ourselves to become consciousness outside of the film, to make a choice, to be the chooser beyond and outside of time and space. And once we grab onto a particular future, that of course has to be somewhere within keeping of our general capacity that we are occupying in consciousness. If let's say I can manifest a flower in front of a 100,000 people or even 700 people, and I do that, part of me was willing to do that because I've already seen miracles happen. I still did it within the realm of what I found acceptable, because had I done it with no hold bar like a yogi, I might find people kissing my feet, which I abhor. So I did it in a way that I could fulfill my wish and yet not give up my fundamental feeling of not wanting to be any different than anybody else. So let's say we go into the future fulfilled if I arrive at home on time, despite the momentary experience of being in a traffic jam. I thank the old image, the old feeling. I ask it to become the new image. I ask the old energy to transform itself into its heightened future. The future that I am capable of making up in my mind. And once these two unify and the two become one, a quantum leap starts happening. And in my consciousness, because I am the chooser of the movie, this quantum field merges two into singularity and pops into its higher potential. Because the old is being addressed in the higher. So therefore the higher has the dominance over the older. The older cannot encompass the new, but the new can encompass the older. And whichever is able to encompass the lesser is the dominant force. So now we will carry in our mind a new feeling. It might be a symbol, but primarily it's a feeling of arriving wherever I wish to be on time. And I remember doing this particular experiment one time when we had to meet a person on time. And at the end of having all these delays, I envisioned being on time. And of course, in my body, I felt better having this positive imagery. But my mind was still wondering, could I make a time and physical space jump? And when we arrived, we were on time, we met the person. I describe a number of miracles like that. And these are things that readers of mine, even interviewers who've interviewed me and done the exercises themselves, have been able to duplicate, because we are the navigator. Our consciousness is a navigator through the quantum field of potential choices. And we simply need to learn that the old can be contained in the new and take on this new vibrational energy, the future now. It's the trick for all manifestations. Being in the future now allows us to arrive much sooner in the desired reality. It's almost like we are the time traveler, focusing on the particular choice within the quantum foam. Now, people argue that you still are within the quantum foam, and it doesn't take you outside of the quantum foam. But I tell you, as long as we are consciousness that has any shape or form, and that does not have to be a body, that can be a disembodied consciousness in and of itself, we are in the foam of consciousness that manifests. We are part and parcel of the whole that takes on ever so subtle forms. The difference is knowing ourselves to be the very center of consciousness that makes the choices, and that we can only do if we're sufficiently connected and linked up to that which is beyond the foam, that which is the source. The singularity and the multiplicity belong together. Many paths have tried to get us outside of this quantum foam, outside of the dance. And in truth, we really are already outside of that. We already are only consciousness, singularity. But singularity seems to have the time of its life manifesting itself into a multiplicity of forms. And wherever we all create a tapestry of multiplicity. Each of us are either beyond or below something else, or next to another frequency. And we create an entire whole, all of which is focused and originating in the center. And learning how to do the dance of purification in our mind, as well as attuning ourselves more and more purely to the center, that allows us to be God in form, the dance and the dancer, the music and the silence at the same time, the space in between and the spaces. And beyond that, we are the light that shines upon the form, one with the source that expresses itself in multiplicity.
So I have an idea now what you're actually teaching in your seminars, much more than before.
We also offer these kinds of trainings online, these manifestation skills, including the techniques of how to transform our blockages, our negative belief systems, or the belief systems that hold us in a particular form. It's called the Living from Vision course, and people all over the world are using techniques. This technique in particular, a lot of people use in many continents now, in order to reach into deeper potentials of their mind, because it does take daily training, it does take focus. It actually only gets better. I listened to my own CDs for 15 years every day with my husband and practiced techniques of manifestation. And when people, look at our world and our life, they say, how on earth did you create all this? We started out just like everybody else, but we practiced every single day our meditation techniques of going upward into the vertical realms of pure God consciousness, as well as into the horizontal of cleaning up our human emotional body and learning to focus our mind to co-create. In the end, co-create heaven on earth, love, beauty. And the longer people practice manifestation skills, the more they start manifesting higher mind functions. We at first may want to have a car that works. Later on, we will create environments and places that benefit more than just our personal self. We start focusing on communal issues. We start focusing on internal higher states. Not just the better lifestyle, not just our own wealth, but the wealth of others as well as the wealth of our happiness. You can find that on our website at www.ilonaselke.com.
I also heard from you something what I heard also from other teachers, that in a sense, as a child, we are much more spiritual in Western civilization. I'm talking about, in the technicized modern civilization of Europe and America. Not in all cultures, but that then somehow our spirituality is kind of blocked, turned down. Mm-hmm. That for the reasons you talked about by manifesting your flower, that we somehow got boundaries in our belief systems that we incorporate. Is it in a sense maybe that we are late developers in the West? That we need a long time in our life until we can come back there where we have probably already been as a 5-6-year-old?
That is a beautiful question. Are we late developers? I would say on this planet we have all different aspects making up an entire tapestry, and souls are incarnating in the East, in the West. Many of us now who are incarnated here in the West have memories of having been incarnated in the East, having been taught Eastern knowledge, and now we find ourselves in a very technological society, in a society that offers mostly training of the left brain, of looking at the trees only, at looking at the particles, so to speak, not at the quantum field. And slowly our scientific mind is pointing again at that which the ancient Eastern civilizations and the shamanic civilizations have always done, is pointing at the space beyond the particles, the energy form, the dimensions beyond the physical. And I see our Western evolution as more of a ricochet effect to that which happened the previous 1500 years, which was an era of mystification and dumbification almost of an entire populace, an attempt at trying to dominate a spiritual belief rather than liberating. Instead of creating mystics, we created a dogmatic approach to saying this is how you reach God, and a worldview was built that was very linear. All other cultures have a cyclical understanding of time and space. In the West, and coming from the Middle East, we had an understanding of a beginning and an end, and a finality. And I would say this basic concept of a finality of time has misled us into a spiritual direction that I think we're trying to recover from right now. The church was trying to say there is salvation, there is an end point, and then that's all there is. You enter a finality of physicality, and then beyond that is the everlasting heaven, if you do it right. People are started to question that, and the Enlightenment period started, the period of scientific inquiry, of logical inquiry, and saying, could this even be true? And we try to understand time and space through our logical mind. So it's another way. It's almost like the universe or the humanities trying to understand reality over and over again through its different aspects. Many of the old wisdoms are being destroyed, and the new wisdom, that is not having the luxury of the libraries from the ancient times from 12,000 years ago, have to reinvent the wheel. Some of the information remains, but it's like we're groping in the dark until we discover again and anew and maybe in a different way the hidden secrets of the universe. So I think the West has used the logical mind based on the fact that it was so hidden before, and only a few were chosen to know and could read and write and knew the answer to God and were close to God, and the populace had to believe in one and only one Savior. And now the logical mind has come in the way and discovered the secret hidden laws called science, and yet now all of us who are listening to this probably are at the forefront of discovering yet more hidden laws of reality. And whether we are late bloomers, or I would say we've just taken another avenue to discover the hidden secrets of life. And our subconscious and deeper conscious knows that the scientific or left brain approach, the physically minded approach, will have its limits and needs to be transcended. And we're engaging on a lot of trainings of our right brain and are attempting at becoming a whole brain spiritualized being, which is what all these lectures are about, is becoming balanced in both approaches. We're using our logical mind of the West, the tools of the West, to enter spaces of consciousness that are beyond the logical mind, which is requiring silence, stillness, listening to the dimensions beyond, and training our vehicle, our soul star, so to speak, to perceive that which is not measurable by instruments. So we are late bloomers, but I think we're just being very specific and trying to use a left brain mind to observe the functions of the mystical dimensions.
So this is something what we all could grow in. One of the aspects in your books that was very fascinating for me was your work with dolphins, and how you did describe how dolphins opened you up to another approach to cosmic consciousness and multidimensionality. You also write about it in your book, The Wisdom of the Dolphins.
I write about it in, both my books, Wisdom of the Dolphins and Free Like a Dolphin. Both books are written in a storytelling format to guide our mind through exercises in order to have tools to take home to then practice and become a pure channel. And so dolphins, in a way, to me, represent an evolutionary being. And, there are tales that they have come from the star Sirius. The Dogon tribe in Africa, northern Africa, and in Mali, have records of the Sirius star A and B interacting, which we had no knowledge of. And they also, which is the interesting part, at the same time, say that the beings that came and taught the humans this secret knowledge, which at the time it was being discussed, had not been fully discovered and actually just barely even touched our scientific community, that Sirius A and B rotate around each other, that the humans were taught this knowledge by dolphin-like beings, by beings that came out of the water. So there is this thought that dolphins are actually our descendants from beings from another planet. And the interesting thing is, a lot of people feel drawn to dolphins at a certain stage of their waking up. They feel like they're finding their angels in the sea, the brethrens of higher consciousness. And truly, when we go into the water with dolphins, even when we just sit in a boat watching dolphins. We can engage in experiments of telepathy, and people naturally start entering into a more joyful, more ecstatic, more heart-open energy field. And people, when they start swimming with dolphins, when they come back out, start interacting with each other amongst humans more like a unity, like a pod, like a group, which happens to evolve once we transcend our individual mind, our sense of separation. We start entering the dimension of energy, which functions like waves. The particles are individual little pebbles. Once you perceive, for example, the light photon as a wave, it functions as a whole unit. And whether something can be functioning or seen as a particle or as a wave depends on the frequency that you catch it at. And that is true for us humans. When we interact with dolphins, something in our interactions with dolphins pulls us into a unity field. People describe swimming with wild dolphins as oftentimes like being sucked into an envelope of their energy field that allows them to have a longer breath that they can hold underwater. They suddenly can swim faster. They suddenly can read minds, feel feelings that they had never had before. So being in the envelope and being pulled into this envelope of unity with dolphins allows us humans for a moment to experience what I believe is our next evolutionary step. By being, of course, around masters, you can kind of catch a glimpse of what it is that you were trying to learn. So for me, dolphins have been these kinds of masters that I have chosen to be my internal and external gurus. And they emanate a consciousness, and they make changes in us that, of course, once we go on land, we have to continue with our own strength. We cannot take dolphins like crutches or a guru like a crutch with us anywhere. It requires we become that wave-like being. And remember the feeling we just practiced earlier, that sense of being in a holy space together. And when we looked at each other, there is a sparkling dimension that starts opening. That even as I'm speaking right now and we are listening together, when we enter that heightened state together, there is a place in which my mind and your mind touches. And that which you know becomes accessible to me, and that which I know becomes accessible to you. And even when listening to amazing chanters, singers, I'm thinking of some musicians that elevate me, and the same is true for dolphins. When attuning our mind to those beings, that field that they hold, the doors that they know how to open, become our doorways as well. So as I'm speaking, some of that which is unspoken that I'm sharing right now, doors that I am accustomed to seeing through, become also part of your internal space. The same happens with dolphins. If we focus on dolphins, when we focus on seeing through their mind's eye, we become aware of something that through our own current lens of a human we cannot see, but going into the inner silence and, so to speak, placing our mind into another dimension, another being, and another focal point, we are then able to access information, capacities, abilities that this vessel, in this case dolphins, are able to hold and create and know. And it becomes at that point part of our informational field. And we can ask for that to be absorbed into our DNA, into our structure, and to shape us. And that's the magic of attuning our mind to higher dimensions and to beings, angels, dolphins, masters, that have capacities that are currently beyond our own. Because part of us will start shaping ourselves to incorporate that which they can know. And we then start operating at higher spaces simply by being in their internal company. And this is something we could try here on audio.
Can we do that? I mean, is there a meditation you learn from the book?
Yeah, of course we can do that. I would love to do that. Yes. So let's all just settle in wherever you're laying or standing or sitting. And become aware of making yourself comfortable in your body, taking some deeper breaths and letting them out with a sigh. Slowing down. And in your mind, go to a beautiful beach. A beach that you can make up as beautiful and as radiant as you would like to experience it. It could be a sandy beach, a rocky beach, a sunny beach, whatever you would like, with the most beautiful ocean cove that you would like to be in now. Take a moment to enter such a beautiful place in your mind now. And let your feet touch the ground and feel the ground beneath your feet. The warmth that surrounds you. And imagine looking over that beautiful blue ocean water in this shallow cove. And gently allow yourself to walk into the water. Feeling as if the water is receiving you in that velvety feeling. Letting yourself glide. And as you swim, from a little bit of a distance you start noticing there are dolphins already swimming towards you. A small pod of dolphins is heading right into your cove. And for now, you can imagine as if you can swim underwater as easily as a dolphin does. And you can dive into the water, allowing yourself the joy of the width and breadth and beauty, the warmth of this beautiful cove where you are going to meet the dolphins underwater. And as you dive underwater, you already start hearing the sounds of the sonar of the dolphins coming closer to you. Pearls of sounds touching you. And suddenly, the first dolphin comes into view. He comes swimming towards you. And you look into his or her eyes. He's starting to take an interest in you. And the two of you start swimming around each other. And now you can take your time to do exactly what you would like to do if you had the most beautiful encounter with a dolphin. Allow yourself to imagine how you would feel and be if you could swim with a dolphin exactly the way you would like it. Take a moment now to explore. If you have a request, or maybe want a transmission of information, you can ask your dolphin to do that in whichever way seems appropriate to you. Maybe he sends sonar to you, or he touches the top of your head with his nose. Let your dolphin give you a gift of energy or information, a feeling or an action that would deeply raise your frequency to another level. And maybe other dolphins are swimming together with you. Maybe both of you and the others are joining in a group. Circle dance. Take a moment to imagine how you would be together if you were swimming with all of them here in your beautiful cove, in this beautiful blue water. And as you do, you notice that your dolphin friend is taking you to swim alongside him or her a little bit further away from the group. You look your dolphin friend into his or her eyes, and he or she seems to invite you to join him or her in his or her mind, and you find yourself slipping into his or her consciousness, swimming in his or her body as if you were the dolphin, looking out through his or her eyes, and noticing the sheer feeling that you have in your body as you swim in his or her body now. What does it feel like to be inside your dolphin's body? What would it feel like to be inside your dolphin's friend? What would it feel like to be inside your dolphin, looking out through his or her eyes? And now start taking a look at yourself swimming next to the dolphin, the human that you are, now looking at yourself from the eyes of the dolphin. Through the eyes of the dolphin, look at yourself swimming next to you. And observe where the energies are brighter in your human form, already luminous. And also take a note where the energies are not as bright in your human form. And looking through your dolphin's eyes, imagine what your dolphin might suggest that you would change, amplify, strengthen, or beautify in your human self. What parts of you, what areas in your energy body would best be elevated, beautified, or increased in luminosity? allow yourself to see and feel what that might look like. If you in your human form already were making those changes, looking at yourself from the outside, allowing those changes to take place. And then slipping back into your own body, notice what it would feel like if that change had already happened. What feeling would you have? If you already had that energy in its most beautiful form, what would it feel like if that change would have already happened and taken shape inside your energy system? Maybe this feeling would have some colors. What colors would you see and feel around you? If it had a symbol, what symbol would it be? And let that feeling, color, symbol, energy take fully place within your body and energy system. And in a nod, thank your dolphin friend for allowing you to see yourself through his or her eyes for a moment, and giving you an internal nudge to expand in a way that you might not have thought of before. Thanking him or her, keep that new energy with you as you start slowly returning to the other pod, the group of dolphins that you had left behind. And as you return to the group of dolphins, notice how they are taking note of your changes and how you feel differently now towards them. Bidding your dolphins farewell for now, start swimming back to your beach where you had started your journey from. Bringing this energy with you to your beach as you slowly step out of the water, keeping that beautiful radiant energy in form of color, feeling, or symbol within you. And when you are ready to take this energy into your daily life, you can start by taking a deeper breath, stretching, and gently coming back to the awareness of being in the room where you are sitting or laying or standing, keeping that energy within you.
Thank you very much, Dolphin, and thank you very much, Ilona, for sharing this beautiful meditation with us. I know that you do those meditations on Bali with the people going there, but then we can actually meet the dolphins, not just in our mind.
Yes, I take people swimming with dolphins in Florida particularly. We have a boat there where we take people out into the open water In Bali, where we have a retreat center called Shangri-La, we also take people to see dolphins. However, it is a little bit more challenging to swim with them there, but we do get to go out on fishermen boats and get to be around dolphins. And it's an exquisite sensation in and of itself to feel the dolphins swimming around the boats. Of course, in Florida, the water is only 2 meters deep, and it's blue water and white sand beneath us, and it's a little bit more idyllic. But in both places, we do internal work to purify our emotional body, to focus on the ascension of our soul diamond, as well as encountering dolphins in the wild. And I do say in the wild specifically so that we don't get this impression it's in captivity, because one of the things I do really want to emphasize is that although dolphins can help us, we should not use them in captive situations where they are being used like a crutch in order to get healed. I always ask people, would you volunteer your lover, your beloved, your husband, your wife, your children to be snatched away to a faraway planet, to be kept in a single room, to be fed and to practice only touching other aliens in order to get the food that you need as a human? Dolphins are kept in captivity for performances, for doing things to humans then, which humans, of course, experience as pleasurable, but at what price? Dolphins are in captivity against their will. They are separated males from females. They are aggressive against their own trainers because they do not get enough sex. Dolphins are highly sexual beings, and they are highly social beings, and they bond to the trainer because they have nobody else really to bond to. And a lot of suicides happen in captivity for dolphins. Dolphins go into depression in captivity, and I would really urge everybody who is listening, vote with your dollar. Do not go to any dolphinariums. Go only to encounter dolphins in the wild, where you meet them on their own terms when they want to. Although that may be a little bit more expensive or a little bit more tricky, you have the guarantee that they want to interact with you when they do, and you give the honor to a higher being that we owe to anybody that is at least as highly developed as humans, if not more. There is a movement that is trying to give cetaceans a sort of human right declaration. They're trying to promote the consciousness that dolphins and cetaceans are further evolved, or at least as evolved as humans, and demand that we treat them as such. And as such, we don't tie them up, we don't keep them in captivity, and we vote with our dollar by simply supporting only free dolphins.
So thank you for supporting the Free the Dolphins idea and movement, what I've support myself very much anyway. And I think most of our audience also is already for supporting Freeing the Dolphins. Thank you very much, Ilona, for joining us at the Hay House World Summit and for the beautiful meditations you gave us.
Thank you so much yourself. I really appreciate you. Thank you for Hay House for providing this incredible opportunity for so many people having a free of charge event here during the first week of June in 2013.
Thanks for joining us for this 2013 Hay House World Summit interview. We hope that you found it inspirational, uplifting, and educational. This is a global event, and we're glad that you could join us as we make the world a little smaller.